WBEE HD2 and W239BF Rochester. The sports leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950 WGR Rochester. An Odyssey sports station. Welcome into the Sports Bar with Gene Battaglia, where the voice of the Rochester fan is heard. Pull up a stool and join us at 866-4326. This is WGR Rochester, and the Sports Bar with Gene Battaglia is on now.
2 hours of sports talk excellence under a thick cloud of smoke here today in Rochester. And the sun is not out from the High Falls Studios in downtown Rochester. My name is Gene Battaglia. Plenty of ways you can join in, plenty of platforms, 95.7 FM, AM 950. Streaming for free, as always, inside the Odyssey app. We're on YouTube and on Twitch. You can leave a comment while you're there watching. You can reach us on X at WGR Rochester is our handle. And as always, we will welcome your calls on the Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub Wingman line at 585-866-4326. Award-winning barbecue from Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub, 135 West Commercial Street, East Rochester, goodsmokebbq.com. Yeah, for folks that maybe just tune into our show outside of the area, hey, what's happening in my hometown? I'm a displaced Rochesterian, displaced Rochester, New Yorker. It's a flashback to 3 years ago where we have these Canadian wildfires, and we got the kind of alerts yesterday, like, okay, we might have a little haze. This kind of feels like Armageddon, like it did a few years ago, where it is, I don't even know what you want to call it, orange. It is just a weird color outside right now. So, yes, just a strange day, and hopefully the skies will clear tomorrow. That is out of the way, and again, we got a great show for you lined up here today. As our betting expert, PJ Glasser, will join us next hour. Now, things we'll talk about. We have another semifinal coming up at 3 o'clock today between Argentina and England. Hey, you want to spice it up a little bit? How do you play this? PJ will give us his play on the World Cup. And then also we'll kind of handicap, all right, if it's Spain against Argentina, if it's Spain against England, how does that kind of play out on Sunday? PJ Glasser, we'll also talk to him some golf. We have our final major of the golf season. How quickly time flies, right? It is going to be beginning tomorrow overseas. And what kind of event would this be if you actually had an Englishman on the leaderboard on Sunday? There hasn't been an Englishman since Nick Faldo in 1992 to win the Open. And could you imagine that? And then perhaps having England in the World Cup final. What a day that would be. PJ Glasser will join us. Also, and this dates back to yesterday's show where I was just kind of talking about how ESPN threw up this graphic. I say ESPN. It was the ACC network, but the ACC network is owned by ESPN. So on the ACC network, they have odds to win the conference, and they list a ton of schools, and they don't list Syracuse. So that's where we are with Syracuse football entering the college football season. Hey, it's July 15th. I said, PJ, you up for talking a little college football? He says yes. PJ loves some college football, so we'll kind of talk a little ACC. And spoiler alert, I asked him, like, who do you like? Now, one team, not a surprise. I think you can kind of figure it out. The other team, I'm like, that's interesting. So we'll talk a little college football. PJ Glasser coming up in hour number 2. It was a light bulb that went off in my head right around the Bills-Broncos playoff game. Because if you go back, wait a second, there's all these injuries. Couple ACLs coming out of the Jacksonville win. Gabe Davis, Darrell Shavers. You had Ty Johnson, not able to participate going back to the Jet game. A lot of things that weren't going the Bills' way. We need to have an injury expert. We found him. Charlie Schumann played football for Penn State. He is a Pittsford-Sutherland grad, played for Keith Molinich at Pittsford. So this is a Rochester guy who will be joining us every week from Lattimore Physical Therapy. Charlie Schumann to join us bottom of this hour where, hey, Aaron Judge, Shohei Ohtani, there's some injuries right now that, okay, if you're a Yankee fan, you're probably looking at your watch like, all right, well, it's great that we're doing okay here. We entered the break winning some games, but boy, it'd be great to get our guy back. We'll talk to Charlie Schumann and get his opinion on some of these injuries, injury concerns around the sports world. Again, our phone number 585-866-4326 here. on the Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub Wingman line. The table is set. My name is Gene Battaglia. One of our producers, Dan DeLorean, will be returning from San Diego, assuming today is the travel day. So I can't wait to talk to Dan about his trip to the zoo out in San Diego tomorrow. Tim Schneider, our other producer, and I asked him to grab this cut because sometimes things get recycled. And I try to be mindful of that. Like, hey, we've talked about this before. And sometimes even at a national level, like, no, you're a little off on this. So if you're watching the All-Star game last night, it wasn't a great game. I mean, thoughts on this in general. Sanchez, Phillies. If I'm a Philly fan, I'm mildly concerned, knowing that he got roughed up and then last night couldn't locate the ball properly. And granted, you're facing an all-star lineup, literally, but that was the difference in the game. And you could have turned the game off after the first inning, be like, okay, that's over, knowing we've got these parade of relievers coming out. And that ended up being the case. So it, to me, was your kind of typical baseline all-star game where we didn't have this great back and forth. It's fun when you have it, but it just seemed like everybody went out there, did their job. The cool part for me was seeing Ernie Clement do his thing at shortstop and then throw out Pages. And they identified it right away, but they're like, boy, well, that would have been nice the other way around if you were a Jays fan, because Pages robbing Clement, of course, in that unbelievable Game 7. But back to my point about the recycled take, because the recycled take here is like, oh, the All-Star game isn't what it used to be, and it's in big trouble. This was Buster Olney on ESPN.
Fragile. I think this Midsummer Classic is in a fragile state right now, and there's a lot of concern within the sport because so many players are opting out of the game, whether it's to be scheduled in the final weekend on Saturday and Sunday, making them ineligible to pitch or making the choice not to pitch. I mean, in this All-Star game, Jacob Misiorowski, the guy everyone wants to see, he didn't pitch. Paul Skeens didn't pitch. Cam Slittler, Aaron Judge was not there. Shohei Ohtani was not there. At Citizens Bank Park last night, a third of the stands had cleared out by the 8th inning. That is a concern for baseball to address as you move forward.
Okay. Let's kind of unpack this here because there's a lot of things in there. And when somebody gives you an objection, you just override that. I don't know why he's including Aaron Judge in that. It's not Aaron Judge's fault. He's injured. That has nothing to do with the future of the All-Star game. What are you suggesting? That Aaron Judge should have gone out there and perhaps played hurt? No. And even if he was like, okay, well, he's at 80%. No. Is there a single Yankee fan that is upset that Aaron Judge wasn't in the All-Star game last night? I don't know why Buster Olney's throwing that in. If you're trying to make the point that, hey, this All-Star game wasn't great because of these reasons, but he's making the point that players are opting out. And his point about the pitching, it doesn't hold up. That is nothing new. That is the recycled take. This is nothing new. Starting pitchers sometimes don't want to do this. It's a long season, and we can't be talking out of both sides of our mouth that, my goodness, we have this epidemic of pitchers getting hurt. Well, hey, if everything isn't quite right, then don't push it for the All-Star game. And it's been this way for a number of years. And for the sake of my argument, I pulled up one game. I picked a random year. And then I will ask our producer, Tim Schneider, where I swear I did not tell Tim I was going to do this. Okay, and Tim, do not look ahead. But the random year I picked was 2011. I think that's a fair gauge. 15 years, okay, that's kind of sort of, I don't know what we define as a generation, right? But we're all old enough to remember 15 years ago, and 15 years is enough time to change. You know what has changed here? Nothing, okay? That night, the National League beat the American League 5-1. Kind of a forgettable game, just like last night. And your starting pitchers that night for the National League, well, it was a late Roy Halladay. Okay, so he got the win. Actually, he did not get the win. He started, pitched the one inning, but because the National League didn't take the lead until the 4th, your winning pitcher was the immortal Tyler Clippard. Tyler Clippard, who pitched for 12 teams. Chances are he might have pitched for your favorite team, too. He's been out of the game since 2022. That's an all-star? Like, okay, hey, kids, let's watch Tyler Clippard. The losing pitcher that night, C.J. Wilson. That's an all-star? Oh, but, Gene, these are relief. Right. This is how you backfill. You get good middle relievers who can put up a good season or two. In the case of Tyler Clippard, gosh, he made a great career out of a few good years bouncing around. Starting pitcher for the American League that night. Guy I guarantee you forgot about. Jared Weaver. Brian Wilson. Remember Brian Wilson with the beard?
Yeah, Giants.
He got the save. Now, 2011. That's the sake of I'm just presenting that. Tim, give me some random year, okay, that we'll just look it up, and then it'll be the same thing. Like, oh, these are pitchers we didn't hold Tyler Clippard in high regard back then.
Let's go 07.
2007 MLB All-Star Game. Okay. Box score. Perfect. We're pulling this up. All right. 2007 saw the American League beat the National League 5-4 from AT&T Park. Is that San Francisco? I think so. I don't know. Like, I'm trying to remember who had the... Okay. This is a good all-star game because it's remembered for one play. This is the inside the homer from Ichiro Suzuki.
Okay.
So this was San Francisco. So that to me is star power. But, my gosh, Jake Peavy, who was great for just a half minute, right? And then the rest of the NL All-Stars. These were the pitchers that night. Brad Penny, Ben Sheets, Cole Hamels, Chris Young, Francisco Cordero, Takashi Saito, I barely remember him, Billy Wagner, Trevor Hoffman.
Good back end.
Good back end. The American League starting pitchers. Now, this is funny because I'm like, wait a second. I'm going to read you the starting pitcher, and then you're going to – the rest of these guys are like, wait a second. How do these other guys not start? Dan Herron was a starting pitcher that night.
All right.
Followed up by Josh Beckett. Not a Hall of Famer, but you know what? You say Josh Beckett. And
won a World Series, two of them.
Yeah, two of them. Yeah, when he was on, he was on. Hall of Famer, CeCe Sabathia. Future Hall of Famer, Justin Verlander. Johan Santana, who pitched 350 pitches in his no-hitter for the New York Mets and gave us our only no-hitter. Thank you for that, and then ruined his career. Jonathan Papelbon, Class A jerk. J.J. Putz, and then Francisco Rodriguez was really good. So maybe
that AL staff.
That AL staff was pretty good. All right, from that year. So maybe that would be a feather in the cap of Buster Olney. But I don't think. Do we really, really need Paul Skeens out there for an inning? If you're a Pirate fan, like if you just look at this through the lens of your favorite team, you probably aren't upset that if you're a Brewers fan, you didn't see Mizorowski out there. Or if you're a Pirate fan, hey, Skeens did start his rookie season. Didn't start after that. So I'm totally fine with that. But to bring in, the one point he does bring up is about Ohtani. For Shohei Ohtani to opt out, but yet, again, the dude was hitting a home run against the Diamondbacks the weekend before. I think it's the Sunday before the All-Star break. We'll talk to Charlie Schumann about the Shohei Ohtani injury. Is it really an injury? I mean, it could be. Like, some of these things can be nagging, and I just need the extra rest. But nothing's going to change in regards to the All-Star game. Again, to my point, that this is nothing new. Baseball was concerned about this how many years ago? Remember the bright idea, hey, we need to jazz up and spice up the All-Star game. Winner of the All-Star game gets home field advantage in the World Series, which is kind of ridiculous when you think, okay, this is coming down to C.J. Wilson and Tyler Clippard or whoever it may be.
102-loss mandatory All-Star for the Pirates or Royals or whoever.
Yeah, it's like that no. And thankfully, like, just have some fun. The All-Star game, to me, number one on the list is the Home Run Derby. The ratings have proved that. I haven't seen the ratings here. Maybe Netflix will, by virtue of that it being not on on a network that'll hurt. And sure, Buster Olney criticizing the All-Star game. I would say, yeah, it's been on Fox for a good number of years, decades. But ESPN not having the rights they used to kind of makes me look at Buster Olney and say, yeah, you know what, that's coming off a little bit sour grapes because, again, nothing has changed. The only thing in your soundbite there saying that the All-Star game is fragile is I would question, all right, Shohei Ohtani, if you needed some extra days for that knee, but you were playing. Just kind of interesting to me in that regard. 585-866-4326. We do have some dates for the Buffalo Sabres, though the whole schedule to come out tomorrow. And, we knock on the NHL for a lot of things. This is the NHL understanding that today, okay, I'm glad you're with us here in the sports bar. We're just hanging out on a summer afternoon where it doesn't feel like summer. It feels like we're in Hades here in Rochester under the sky. It's good that the NHL puts this story out there to kind of fill a void. Here is a little morsel on the schedule, and we will give you the entire schedule tomorrow. The Major League Baseball All-Star break, before we get to the NFL training camps opening, this is a slower time. The NHL recognizing this and putting out their schedule tomorrow. But today we learned that, hey, the home opener for the Sabres, Bull Byram in Chicago. Am I allowed to wonder, was that an audible? Was this just coincidence that these schedules are worked out in advance, but sometimes you can tweak a thing or here or there, and that's going to spice it up a little bit. It's the earliest home opener ever for the Sabres, Saturday, October the 3rd. A couple extra games kind of going in there. The Sabres actually opened the season on a Thursday night in Columbus, and of course, all right, that might be a little kitschy too with. Isn't it strange to think that this time last year Kevin Adams was still the GM?
Yes, it is.
Like how many things, like 1 year has gone by. Jarmo Kekalainen, former Blue Jackets GM, now the Sabres GM. As the Sabres open up in Columbus, that's great. This doesn't have kind of the I can't wait hitting refresh like the NFL schedule does. And proof of that is you don't have phony NHL accounts tweeting out misinformation. Sometimes there's leaks that are legit, but more often than not, we don't have that, thankfully, cottage industry happening right now online. It's because, hey, everybody plays a balanced schedule, and the one thing you are curious about is, okay, when is the long road trip? Do we get some key dates at home? For instance, are we home on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving? Are we home on Black Friday? How many times are we home over the holidays? Like, what are some good dates to maybe take my kid? Or, hey, I'm not a Sabre fan, but I'm a fan of blank. We talked to RIT men's hockey coach Matt Thomas. He's a great guy, right? Other than the fact that he's a Leafs fan.
He gets one flaw. Everybody gets one flaw.
He gets one flaw. I can't look past that, man. Sorry. Yeah, if you're a fan, and there are other fans, and that's fine. You be loyal to your team. That's what I always say. Like, I'm not going to abandon the Mets because they suck this year, so you got to just stay true. And then that way, when the good times come around, you can say you were there. Hockey story today, and I love how sometimes things are dressed up to make it look like we really didn't fire this person, but they kind of did because the guy was a legend in Detroit. Stevie Yzerman, my gosh, leading the team to Stanley Cups, and here he is as the GM and the president. And I would say that probably hockey, more than any other sport, when it comes to decision makers, GM, president, player personnel, former players, I seem to have this inclination. I don't know if everybody's ever done a study on it that, when it comes to, hey, what percentage of decision makers when it comes to player personnel are actually former players? I think hockey has the highest percentage. And you don't have to go very far, right? Jarmo Kekalainen's a former player. Brandon Beane is not playing in the NFL. For that matter, Sean McDermott did not play in the NFL, right? So I'm curious if hockey will just hire the best person available, that you don't need a quote-unquote guy who played the game. But Stevie Yzerman, for many reasons, got that job, and it didn't work out. So today, he's pushed out as president GM. Actually, he's moving to an advisory role. Okay. Just like how Bruce Arians in Tampa Bay moved to an advisory role. Okay. Funny how those advisory roles you don't ever hear about. Other than maybe a John Davidson was hired by Jarmo Kekalainen. The story here is like the timing of this. And I suppose there's never a good time to fire president and GM and hire another GM. But for Detroit, it could be just as simple as, well, the season starts to go down the tubes. You're not making the postseason. Does it behoove you to make that move at the end of the season, like, say, an NFL team would? Or, you know what, table it. In wrestling, they say doing the honors. For Stevie Yzerman, all right, you and your staff are going to do the honors, but ultimately we need to make a change here. Because it's Yzerman's staff that did all the work for free agency and, just as important, did all the work scouting for the draft and whatnot. So it feels like this is a reset button that is about to happen in Detroit when you also table in the fact that, or factor in, all right, their best player, Dylan Larkin, is still out there. So now, all right, there's not a GM. Larkin's got to be like, what the hell?
It could be the work they didn't do, though, by not making that trade.
That's another point, too. That's another point. But it's not good. So the thing that, if you're a Sabre fan, you have to acknowledge is that there were some teams last year. The Sabres were great during the regular season. There were other teams that just threw up all over themselves. I'm looking at Toronto. You know, Florida had injuries. That was kind of all right. We've been to the Cup a couple times. Florida's going to be back. With Toronto, we can assume is going to put forth a better effort. They have talent. They now have Bobrovsky. It's not going to be just, smooth sailing for the Sabres. But I think there are a couple teams we can say safely right now. I'm not worried about Ottawa. Sorry, Dan DeLorean. You trade away your best player, another reset button there. I'm not concerned about Detroit. You go back to February, Detroit was actually ahead of the Sabres in the standings. Well, hell, everybody was ahead of the Sabres in December. But the point was, we were talking about Detroit perhaps being a first-round playoff opponent until they weren't. So, Stevie Yzerman out in Detroit. Let's talk about those injuries. Shohei Ohtani, Aaron Judge, others. Our first maiden voyage for Charlie Schumann. Former Penn State player, Lattimore Physical Therapy, will join us coming up. We also have time for your calls, 866-4326. My name's Gene Battaglia. This is WGR Rochester.
WGR Rochester Sports Update.
World Cup semifinal coming up at 3 o'clock from Atlanta. It's Argentina against England, the winner to face Spain in the final coming up on Sunday. Got a couple of dates on the Sabres schedule. Buffalo opening the season in Columbus on Thursday, October the 1st. The home opener is Saturday, October the 3rd against Bo Byram and the Chicago Blackhawks. The complete NHL schedule will come out 1 o'clock tomorrow. Baseball's all-star break, including the Rochester Red Wings, are back home Friday against Jacksonville. The majors resume tomorrow with just one game, the Mets taking on the Phillies. Sports is brought to you by GetMyPerks.com. Get 2 rounds for the price of 1 to Eagle Vale Golf Course. For this and other great deals, log on to GetMyPerks.com. Gene Battaglin, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, WGR Rochester.
Shelf Sports Talk. You're hanging out in the sports bar with Gene Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 WGR, Rochester.
Yeah, that Bills season was so topsy-turvy, up and down. You almost forget, like, wait a second, Josh Allen was playing with a broken bone in his foot, but we really didn't know the particulars because the NFL doesn't want you to know. But it was around then, and I was like thinking, you know what, we got to get somebody that actually... Yeah, we get to develop a relationship, knows that's this sort of stuff. And I think we found him. Played for Penn State, played for Coach Milinich at Pittsburgh, and now with Lattimore Physical Therapy, Charlie Schumann, first time on the show. Charlie, appreciate you doing this. How are you, bud?
How are you? Good. How are you? It's nice to be here.
Yeah. Let's talk about some of the things kind of going on. I'm gonna table all the Bills stuff for now because we got that still coming up. But while it's kind of still fresh in our mind, I mean that disappointment from the U.S. soccer team, right? It seemed like, all right, if they had gotten at least to the quarterfinal, we might have been satiated. They did not, and now we look at reasons why, and you look at Christian Pulisic. And look, we know that he got hurt with a microfracture, but let's go back to the calf injury for Pulisic. And anything, I guess, that I ask you, Charlie, comes with a disclaimer that, okay, we really don't know, of course, the particulars with each individual athlete. But in general, when you have a calf injury, I mean, what is that recovery like? And I'm just kind of wondering if someone like Pulisic might have rushed it back too soon.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. So there's a lot of things to go. I did an internship with the Bills actually 2 years ago, so I learned a lot about how you operate in elite sports, and from a conservative standpoint, did he probably rush it back faster than he should? He theoretically could have, but there's always that risk versus reward that athletes at the elite level take into account. So context is huge here, right? So, the World Cup only comes around 4 times a year. I'm sure they're going through testing. They have access to some of the best technology there is out there. So what they'll do is they'll go through a whole bunch of testing day to day. I mean, they're doing treatment 2 to 3 times a day. So they essentially end up at a point of when they're going to go or not is they have to make a risk versus reward, because you're probably not going to be 100% at any point during the World Cup for him to come back from a calf strain. But, Christian Pulisic he's a competitor, so he wants to be out there. He wants to help the U.S. win, whether it's at his 100% or 95%.
Yeah, so for Pulisic and for everybody that maybe follows AC Milan, right? A microfracture he suffers in that loss to Belgium. What is that injury, Charlie, and how long is that recovery?
Yeah, so essentially the microfracture is more of it's a deep bone bruise to the bone. So it's not like your traditional fracture where you go in and get an X-ray and there's a straight line across the bone. Oftentimes it's actually not caught until you get an MRI. So it's essentially like a stress fracture. And the problem with that is it just doesn't heal. It's hard to put a timeline on a stress fracture. Everyone heals very differently. And the way bone heals when there is a stress fracture and a reaction is that you need to give it time to heal but it is also a stress and load reaction. So you have to reintroduce load at a level appropriate for where the bone isn't healing. And if you go too much too soon, now we get into that microfracture. We need to heal longer versus, you let it heal and slowly work your way back to sport. Again, for him, AC Milan is going to have a lot of technology to be able to do certain types of clinical tests to tell when he's ready, but they'll probably take it slower than he needs to given his history this summer.
Help us learn here. Can one injury sometimes lead to another? In other words, all right, say in theory an athlete overcompensates for an injured calf. Could that lead to other injuries like this bone bruise that he suffered?
Yeah, like you said earlier, it's hard to put a causation to it, but absolutely. We see it all the time is, you have a little niggle somewhere here and there of an ankle injury, or you don't have full range of motion of the joint, and then you're changing the chain reaction biomechanics that your body is going through, and something else takes the brunt of that force. So he isn't loading into his calf as well as he normally is with running, and his calf muscles aren't absorbing force from running and cutting, and now that force goes through the bone, it overloads the bone, and here we are with a microfracture. Is that it's easy to say in retrospect and where we are now. So who knows really? Could there be 100 other causes? Absolutely. But you do, it's easy to look back on an injury like this and be like, hey, we just missed another game. Would we be in this point? But I'm sure the team had thought of these things before putting him back on the field with that calf injury and had the conversation with him, knowing his goals and where he wanted to be to help the USA win. And, unfortunately, they just couldn't get it done.
Yeah. Charlie Schumann, our guest here, Lattimore Physical Therapy. One other question about the World Cup. And today's game in Atlanta, I think one of the fun things about the World Cup is just seeing these NFL stadiums that we know, if you love NFL football, and it takes me a half second to kind of recognize it. Like, wait a second, because FIFA, number one, dresses it up differently. Number two, hey, there's actually grass on these fields. And it kind of bummed me to see these photos like, all right, no more games in Foxborough, out goes the grass. I'm like, you're kidding me. We couldn't keep this for a little bit here. In goes the artificial turf. I mean, where do you come down in fact versus myth? Because the players, as we know, the Players Association really, really wants the NFL owners to make sure that this is a point. Why don't we have grass? Where do you come down on this, Charlie, on the grass versus turf debate? Is grass actually that much safer?
It's hard. It's a really great question. I think it's sport to sport is very dependent too. Like, you just don't see soccer played on turf. A little bit in college you see it. But yeah, the research is hard to ignore out there is that with turf, there's a higher rate of non-contact injuries. Again, with research, it's hard to really control all the variables of, what was that person's previous injury history? How strong are they? Do they have a deficiency in something else that led to this injury, or was it strictly just the fact that they were on turf? It's a nuanced debate that I think we'll go back and forth on for forever until we switch one way or another completely. If you think about what turf is, where they make it very well, but it is artificial and it's basically fake grass put on top of a concrete slab. So there's less force absorption than you would get in the grass. But on the same side of that debate is grass isn't, you can't say grass is perfectly safe. On a wet day in Western New York in the middle of October, you've seen the golf courses around here sometimes when you get it wet, like you stick your foot in there and you're going 2 inches deep in the turf. That can be just as dangerous as landing on the hard hard turf. So it's really hard to say. I mean, grass is beautiful when you can upkeep it in the middle of the summer. But when you get weather like you do in football season, it gets crazy. I played at Penn State. We have a great, absolutely fantastic turf management program. So we always play on grass at Penn State. And some of those rainy September weekends, we had some nasty divots from where guys would be pushing off.
Yeah, that's a good point. There's no perfect answer to that. A few more for you here because we are in the middle of baseball season. It's not good for baseball, certainly, that the two biggest stars right now we have injury concerns. One perhaps bigger than the other. Aaron Judge, he's been out for a while, and I thought the whole kind of how they couldn't really diagnose it right away, and I had to kind of look this up. Intercostal strain, overstretched, torn muscles between the ribs. Where are we at? Because a lot of Yankee fans, that's the question. Okay, when are we getting Aaron Judge back here? What is the injury to Aaron Judge, and what kind of timeline is the recovery here?
Well, I'll start with this. I'm a Mets fan through and through, so. Yes. Take my opinion for what it is. No, I'm kidding. It's hard because they're two very different injuries with the stress fracture of the first rib and then the intercostal strain. Baseball is such a large rotational sport, and typically, I believe Aaron Judge does not. Does Aaron Judge? I'm not sure if he switch hits, but typically they're more dominant. So they're more dominant on one side rotationally. And over time, I mean, he's a strong dude. So he rotates with a lot of force. And at some point, some of these muscles and bones they can't take it over and over again. And that's where his first rib and that intercostal muscle is being loaded repetitively. It's hard. Again, the initial estimate I think I saw this was 4 to 6 weeks. But like we said with the Piwisic microfracture, is the bone healing with those things are very unpredictable, and the symptoms that come on from that, everyone's experience with pain is different. So, he wants to be out there on the field, but we have to make sure from a rehab perspective that we put him back in the most advantageous position, that he's not going to, come back off the field in 2 weeks. After swinging, saying, hey, we're still in a position where I just can't do this and I can't perform at the level that I want to. So, we should see him back at some point this season, but it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, is the intercostal strain like a hamstring? In other words, we see in football, oh gosh, my favorite player tried to come back and he actually made it worse by speeding up the recovery. Is that part of the concern? Can you say is there any similarity when it comes to Judge's intercostal strain?
Yeah, for sure, right? So the intercostal muscle basically connects the rib. So I mean, he's probably having discomfort with even breathing, possibly. It contracts and relaxes every time you breathe. And it's hard. With that being said, it's hard. Like with a hamstring, you can offload it, immobilize it if you really need to, but a rib and an intercostal muscle, for daily function, you have to use them. So you can't really offload those things. And it's the same thing with both the intercostal strain and the stress fracture. You worry as you get back into sport is when is too much, and when is not enough. And that's the battle that we play is too much too soon. We take a step back and we re-injure that stress fracture, that intercostal strain. But if we don't load enough, then we never really get back. So it's trying to find that sweet medium.
Yeah, Charlie, I'm going to ask you the Shohei Ohtani question. This is one where, okay, I really – and nobody really knows what's going on there, but it's noteworthy that he skipped the All-Star game because of some sort of knee issue. Now, he announces that, but then he hits a home run on Sunday. So I'm like, that gets a lot of people asking the question. But let's say there is something there. In theory, would 1 week of rest do the trick here when it comes to recovery?
Possibly. again, it depends on what is truly going on in his knee. It may be an inflammatory response from something that happened this season, but he's also had surgery on that same knee before. So it could be a chronic issue that he's dealing with. Load management is a huge thing with soft tissue injuries. And for him, with their goals with the Dodgers is right, they want to go win another World Series. So he got selected to the All-Star game. Does playing, another game in the middle of their season move the needle forward for them versus taking 4 or 5 days of extra rest, recovery to really get that knee back? So in theory, yeah, a week could be more than enough time. It just depends on what that knee looks like under load. There may just be some swelling that they're taking out of there and offloading the joint. It feels better with some short-term rest, and then they slowly build him back up to where he wants to be. He's such an incredible athlete, and he does so much for that Dodger team. I don't think he's too worried about missing the All-Star game the way that it has become anymore anyways.
Yeah. Charlie, last one here for you. And before when NFL training camps open, my gosh, we'll have a whole new list of questions and revisiting everything with the Buffalo Bills and, their list of who might be available and who might not be when training camp opens. But I think one of the headline stories is the Rams. I mean, they get Myles Garrett. They were a step away from the Super Bowl last year. They're loading up. But if they get Aaron Donald back, now, Aaron Donald working out at the Rams facility, I think we can all connect the dots here, right? We're all expecting a comeback, but then you kind of pause and you're like, wait a second, he hasn't played since January of 2024. Technically, this will be 3 seasons off. For someone even as great and as special as Aaron Donald, and again, you played at Penn State, what kind of challenge is this? Because we've heard of this. There's a difference. What is the difference between being in shape, Charlie, and being in quote-unquote football shape?
Yeah, that's a great question. Aaron Donald, you've hit some pretty freaking big athletes here. Aaron Donald is a specimen. We've seen guys come back to sports after time off. It's different with Aaron Donald, right? Because I don't know if we've seen recently a defensive lineman. It's a much more physically demanding position. And can he do it? Absolutely. He's the type of athlete that, he's got a six-pack at 295 pounds. You don't see that very often. So he's strong. I'm sure he stayed in some type of good shape, and then he spent the time this summer to get back into that football shape. And what they'll do for him throughout the season is right. They want to make the playoffs, obviously, so they'll use him and build up his football shape throughout camp and during the season. And then what they'll really try and push his limit is when they get into the playoffs and really start to use where his skill set is. They'll manage his load throughout the season. That comes back up again to allow him to build on that football shape. But the best way to build your football shape is playing football.
Yeah.
Right. So he'll be able to do it. If there's a guy in the NFL that can do it as a defensive lineman, it's Aaron Donald. He's incredible to watch, and you've seen some of his videos that he posts working out. I'm sure he's done crazier stuff in the 2 years since he played last working out than most of the guys do in between their seasons anyways.
That's a scary thought to see Aaron Donald going alongside Myles Garrett and whatever else that they're going to work up there. Charlie Schumann, I'll just tell you this. You're in a safe spot here because I, too, am a Met fan, and I'm just disgusted with this team. But you can't abandon your favorite team, Charlie. You have to stick through it.
No, you can't.
You
absolutely can.
Yeah, part of it. Charlie, tell everybody about Lattimore where if they have a question on a personal level, you are available to be heard, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I personally work out of the Greater Pittsford office right on State Street in Pittsford, but we have 35 locations, soon to be 36 locations across the Greater Rochester area. We're just a call away to help you with any of your physical therapy needs, whether there's a nagging injury that's been going on for years or something fresh. We're here to help, and we really encourage people that we we get you in fast and get you back to doing the things that you love to do.
Now, this will be right in your wheelhouse because you did intern for the Bills, and it's enough time where, okay, you're not giving any inside info, but next time we have you on, perhaps next Wednesday, if that fits your schedule, with camp opening up really soon, I'd just love to hit you with a bunch of Bills questions if you're up for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I love Bills fan through and through, so.
Charlie, thanks a lot, bud. We'll do this again. Appreciate your time today.
Yeah, that sounds great. We'll talk to you soon, man. Appreciate it.
All right, thanks, Charlie Schumann, Lattimore Physical Therapy. If I have one takeaway there, intercostal strain stress fracture for Aaron Judge, 4 to 6 weeks. That feels like a guesstimate to me.
They already re-updated that one to after, well past the 6 weeks.
Right, so they don't know. And it might be one of those interests. Okay, they're weighing everything, I think, right now. Okay, can we still make the postseason? Do we need at-bats from Aaron Judge in July, in the first half of August? Because it seems like the more rest you're going to give that, the better a chance it's not. The thing that would really kill the Yankees is this. Judge comes back, yay, and he hits a few home runs, and then the thing strains again. And then what do you do? So it's a tricky situation. That's why these physical therapists get paid a lot of money. Charlie Schumann, our guest here in the Sports Bar. We've got Timmy's Terrible Take. The DNC has a Section 5 football story that I think is going to raise a lot of questions here. I think we can get into that as well. I know one of our listeners, Brian in Hilton's going to, his head's going to explode there when he reads this. We also will take your calls at 585-866-4326. My name is Gene Battaglia. This is the Sports Bar.
BF Rochester, the sports leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950 WGR Rochester. An Odyssey sports station. WGR Rochester. Sports Update.
We have just 2 games left in the World Cup. The final on Sunday and the second semifinal coming up at 3 o'clock. From Atlanta, it's Argentina against England. The winner to face Spain in the final on Sunday. Talk about this game and other things with PJ Glasser coming up later this hour. Sabres schedule, well, we have a couple dates released. Buffalo opened the season in Columbus on Thursday, October the 1st. Home opener Saturday, October the 3rd against Bo Byram and the Chicago Blackhawks. The complete NHL schedule coming out at 1 o'clock tomorrow. Rochester Red Wings, they're also on the break. They're back home Friday against Jacksonville. The Majors off tonight. They resume tomorrow with just 1 game. The Mets taking on the Phillies. Sports is brought to you by GetMyPerks.com. Get 2 rounds for the price of 1 to Eagle Vale Golf Course. For this and the great deals, log on to GetMyPerks.com. Gene Battaglin, the sports leader, 95.7 FM, AM 950, WGR Rochester.
Pull up a chair, stay for a while. You're in the sports bar on WGR. Grab a drink, hang your coat, get sports talk. Live from Western New York. It's a master show. 9 times better than your typical host. 9 times. Gene and Tim have takes much hotter than most. No one cares when you're out. Sabres, Bills, Americans, Red Wings, and Nighthawks. Sports bar for Rochester Sports Talk.
Hour number 2 here under Jeepers. It's back in 2023 here. The Canadian wildfires blocking out the sun here today completely. It's kind of these Armageddon skies here in Rochester and throughout Western New York. Welcome back to the Sports Bar. Gene Battaglin with you. We have PJ coming up, bottom of the hour. We'll talk about the Open, the British Open, as well as a little college football. Yep. We are, 5 weeks away from week 0. PJ Glasser will join us coming up bottom of this hour. You are welcome to join us at 585-866-4326. That is our phone number. You can leave us a comment on YouTube, on Twitch, where we are streaming for free, as always, as one of our regulars writing in. Ryan Ken is his name. Ernie was a unanimous all-star, and they bat him 9th.
He was the all-star, yeah.
That kind of was. Now, it's an all-star game, and we have to factor in that Mike Trout is, you can't call him a hometown hero, because you say that to Philly fans, they're like, no, he's a coward. He never came back to the East Coast. He grew up outside Philadelphia, New Jersey. And he's, lived in comfort out there with the Angels, never, been in any serious baseball situation in October. Whether he gets traded eventually, that's interesting. Was that kind of all right, somebody stat-wise, the MVPs, whatnot, this is a future Hall of Famer in his hometown. We're batting him first, and then when you go from there, Clement 9th. And I was like, second time he comes up, swings at the first. He's not afraid of the first ball fastball. That's Ernie Clement. And it just didn't happen for him. But then he makes a great play. And then you're kind of reminded, okay, this guy can pick it. Put him at third, put him at second, put him at short. So that was like, all right, this is Ernie Clement. Thank you, Ryan, for writing in. Our guy, Brian, heard me tease it before. I said, hey, there's a Section 5 story, and I know Brian is a good friend of the show where, he has a certain stance on something when it comes to high school sports. I will get to that. Before we get to any of that, I don't want to shortchange our guy here.
All right.
It's now time for Terrible Time Timmy's Terrible Take of the Day on WGR Rochester. WGR Rochester. It's Terrible Time Timmy.
Allow me to be Rob Manfred for, 3 minutes. Rob Manfred is the ruiner of baseball, and I don't know if I'm young, spry guy trying to keep baseball alive or if I'm grumpy old man trying to, stop ruining my stuff. because we didn't experience this yesterday because the National League forgot to show up. But last year's All-Star game had that run derby swing off to determine the winner. That was incredible.
Yep.
Rob Manfred has Manfred ball, which is putting a ghost runner on second to start extra innings. I suppose if you want to save pitchers and whatever, you can make an argument for it. But I vote go to the home run derby thing because that was incredible way to end the All-Star game last year. But again, the National League scored precisely 0 runs, so that was over in the first inning and not even a possibility. But that's one thing. We've got the All-Star break. It's the pomp and circumstance. We should be celebrating the game, right? And we've got Buster Olney jumping on TV today to say that the All-Star game is fragile. And I think he might have a little bit of a point, but it's been so fragile for so long that
Tim, not to interrupt your point.
Yeah.
Play that for everybody if you could.
Sure.
Yeah, Buster Olney was asked the question, is the All-Star game in a fragile state?
Fragile. I think this Midsummer Classic is in a fragile state right now, and there's a lot of concern within the sport because so many players are opting out of the game, whether it's to be scheduled in the final weekend on Saturday and Sunday, making them ineligible to pitch or making the choice not to pitch. I mean, in this All-Star game, Jacob Mizorowski, the guy everyone wants to see, he didn't pitch. Paul Skeens didn't pitch. Cam Slittler, Aaron Judge was not there. Shohei Ohtani was not there. At Citizens Bank Park last night, a third of the stands had cleared out by the 8th inning. That is a concern for baseball to address as you move forward.
All right, so for Jacob Mizorowski, come on. Let's work our way backwards, and I'll get back to your take here in a second. He's absolutely wrong on Aaron Judge. Why are you throwing that in there? It's not Aaron Judge's fault that he's injured. We talked with our injury expert last hour, Charlie Schumann. Yeah, the timeline keeps getting pushed back because you know what? It is a serious injury. So don't even bring that just kind of sucks that it kind of played out that way. Number two, this is nothing new, pitchers opting out. So you and I are going to disagree on that. I think that's a little bit of hyperbole on the All-Star game in a fragile state. This is what it is. It's been like this for a number of years.
That was my point to it. Yeah, there's an argument to be made that it's fragile, but it's been fragile for 2 decades at this point. Like they tied a game. That's when it was over for me. That was 22 years ago? Whenever it was. Baseball All-Star game has been in rough shape for a long time. But not only that, again, we should be celebrating this sport right now. It's 3 days off, and the best of the best are going at it for 9 innings or 10 or 11, and then the home run derby thing, or swing off, I think they called it, but I digress. On top of all this, you're staring down the barrel of a work stoppage of some sort, and within this CBA, they want to have the players participate in the LA Olympics because, of course, they do, and they're throwing circumstances on that is going to make it almost impossible for the players to want to accept that. Everything that the baseball front offices are doing is so bad for the sport. Rob Manfred has to go. Hire me instead.
Well, it's not that simple because Rob Manfred works for the owners, and I did get one of those nonsense PR. Like you will get this in your feed where it's just your social media feed. If you like baseball, they will find you. Okay, they know this. We all know how things like this work on the internet. And Major League Baseball is paying this to lobby you, the sports fan, about the salary cap. And I'm always going to go on the side of the players unless there's something really, really wrong here. And to put the players in a no-win situation when it comes to the IOC and the Olympics wants the answer. The players can't give the answer. So we came up with this cockamamie hotels and tickets, and it's not the objection for that. The objection is, hey, this is important to the owners to shut down the week we need a labor agreement. Thank you, Tim.
The way that they're doing it for the Olympics, though, is insane to me because you're banning them. If they refuse to participate, you're being suspended for like a long time. It was like a 13-day window. If you're on the IL, you have to be legitimately injured. You can't just go on there right conveniently to get out of the Olympics. Like baseball can fix itself, and all it does is continue to break itself.
Yeah, it's it may be at this point like Rob Manfred wants to. There's 2 things left on his agenda. One being, all right, let's get the labor agreement. 2, as part of the labor agreement, they've been holding back expansion. And that'll be something like, okay, we're going to create more jobs. Poof. But in reality, you're creating all this money because the owners will just be like, oh, Ooh, great. They see it's not going to be the $9 billion that the Seattle Seahawks went for, but what could a Major League Baseball franchise go for an expansion? $5 billion? I wouldn't put it like
a whole lot of dough.
Like if private equity is involved, maybe $5 billion. So imagine divvying that up 30 ways. Oh, times 2 because you have 2 expansion teams. Thank you, Tim.
And poor Junior Caminero too. Rough showing in the Derby, and he wore it.
But he's going to be fine. He's going to be fine. There was a little bit of a scary moment when he got hit by that Cardinal reliever last night, which, yeah, maybe don't crowd the plate. Like they were saying, oh, the pitch got away from him. Well, it's, yeah, but like if you see the ball coming inside, maybe get out of the way. It was just a baseball play. Nobody's throwing it at anybody. 5-8-5, but that's another reason. Like if he actually broke his wrist or something on that, then we'd be all losing our minds right now. 585-866-4326 is our number. PJ Glasser will join us bottom of this hour. This is one of those stories where I have more questions than answers for you on this, and I don't know where this is going. And right now, if I'm an AD in Section 5, if I'm a head coach in Section 5 football, yeah, I might have opinions, but ultimately I would want to know, okay, where is this going as well? And this is the part where I tell you that when I tell you I don't care who wins in Section 5 football, I'm being honest with you. I've gotten like, hey, you're calling this game this way. I don't care. We're just there to promote the kids. That's the honest truth. And I tell you this because I went to Aquinas. Everybody went to a high school. That's where I went to, right? It was a long time ago. Trust me on that. All right, so you don't need to give the year, Tim. But the point is that, all right, this is a take that, all right, people are looking at Aquinas going, all right, what are we doing here? What is this all about? So this courtesy of the article today from James Johnson, Democrat and Chronicle, that there is a school, the Rochester Academy Charter School. Maybe you're familiar with this, maybe you're not. They have different satellite schools, but the high school itself is on Latta Road. It's the old mother of sorrows on right there, like Latta and Mount Reed, right that corner. Right around the corner from Greece Arcadia, right? So charter schools, okay, questions about that. How do you give? I mean, the baseline here is, and this is how I don't know how to feel about this, is that we want kids participating in sports, period, or whatever, music, or volunteering in the community, whatever it is. Get off the damn iPad, get off your phone, and experience life. And the idea that the take is ultimately it's not a bad thing. I understand that's ultimately where we're going to go with this, that if we're going to provide an opportunity, like the Rochester Academy Charter School isn't big enough to hold their own football team. They participate in other sports in Section 5. So according to this article, there are going to be players from this charter school who are now going to be involved with Aquinas football. Okay, a lot of questions here. But I could understand this from both sides, why this partnership between this charter school and Aquinas might make sense. From the charter school, it's an easy sell, right? And it's not like you just go, you got to apply. You got to get, in this charter school to get funding and whatever it is, they need to keep their numbers up. And there's different metrics and whatever. And this is, I don't want to get over my skis, but just talking in general. You have to acknowledge that it's something that you could pitch a prospective student saying, hey, you know what? The tuition here for Aquinas is a lot of money. But we come here. If you can't afford Aquinas, come here and you could still play Aquinas football. Doesn't it kind of feel that way? Number two, well, why would Aquinas want to lose out on the money? No. I don't think Aquinas is having any problems with their numbers. But what helps Aquinas is when they're competitive. And, boy, wouldn't it be great to kind of get a player? This goes into and this is where I cited our friend Brian. Like, this has always been kind of the knock, right? There are some parts of the state where the public schools don't play the private parochial schools. In Section 5, they do. And I never had a problem with that because you know what? The guys at Aquinas, and I'm no relation to Chris Battaglia, by the way. I get that asked a lot. Derek Anacino, those, professionals. For that matter, McQuaid too. Bobby Bates, great guy. But if you want to provide the opportunity, what is preventing the students at Rochester Academy Charter School from helping out just for the sake of competition in East, a Monroe? And if you're not familiar, Monroe football is a powerhouse. Monroe football didn't just win the sectionals. They won the damn state. And they got some really blue-chip players. And they're going to be good again this year. But these are just kind of questions I know. And maybe the answers are kind of simple, and I'm just kind of throwing out there. But it's one of those like, And because there's also this problem, too. Less kids are playing football. You don't believe me? Something unthinkable happened a few years ago. The idea that in order for kids at Leroy and Calmum to keep playing football, the two programs had to merge. You want to talk about the Hatfields and McCoys, neighboring towns? That, to me, was like the rivalry in the 80s and 90s and going back decades before that. And we just don't have enough kids playing football? Or is it just kind of our population is kind of dragging just a little bit? I don't know. I don't think Aquinas football has any problems with their numbers. But this is a competitive advantage. Now, for part of this, too, is this charter school previously had a relationship with Bishop Kearney. And so, again, I'm just asking questions. Anybody that wants to weigh in, 585-866-4326, that is the number. And it's kind of topical, too, because I'm going back and forth with, Kevin Roche, and we're trying to, it's kind of cool, like, I get to, I have a say, Tim, and, okay, what games do we put on CW Rochester this year? I'm like, this is a good matchup. Why don't we try this? Oh, damn it, we've got a NASCAR event. We can't do it that night. The things that, there's TV programming you can bump, and then for some reason on that network, you can't bump NASCAR. That's, I guess, listen, I'm not bumping that, not knocking NASCAR, but that's it's one thing we got to kind of work around. But, again, if I could just bottom line this, okay? The bottom line is we want kids to play sports, okay? But you always want kind of everything to just be level. And would this kind of come off as a feeder school for Aquinas?
Well, on the other side of it, if you're the AD, don't you want them to be put in the best position, the best coaching, the most talent? You want them to actually go and succeed. And I'm not sure how Kearney stands as far as Section 5 football lands, but if that's not a good spot for them to be, and Aquinas might be better.
Right. It just feels like it's expensive. It's an investment to go to Aquinas. That is a fact. So, in a lot of families can't afford that.
Right.
There's help, I'm sure.
And you can merge, with the cities, like you said. You can merge wherever.
Yeah,
but if Aquinas is a better spot for them, the AD reaches out.
The question I have is okay, so then why do we merge Leroy and Calmum, but we're doing this not? Why wouldn't it be? I don't even know what Rochester Academy Charter School is. Like, are they the Lions, the Wildcats? I don't know. But why wouldn't we consider this a merger too? Why aren't we calling it for what it is?
It probably should be.
It probably should be. Like, it probably should be Aquinas/Rochester Academy Charter School. Like,
I know that hockey teams do that, all of them. There's like 7.
Don't get me going on that, Tim, because honestly, they do it sometimes out of budgetary, and I know that for a fact, okay? Not on numbers, and part of it, too, is I guess you could feel kids out there. Anyhow. But, yeah, that's like, who are the WP Panthers? Oh, that's, like Rush Henrietta had to merge. Gates Chili. There's a lot of programs in Section 5 hockey. Portside.
Yeah.
Portside. That's Spencerport and Brockport now. Well, so that's, again, we're not going to shy away when there's a high school story. Again, that's courtesy of James Johnson today. 585-866-4326 says, hey, you know what also, too, helps out in a story like that? Hey, if there's a lot of things going on today, maybe that goes under the wire, and we're realizing, wait a second, is Aquinas getting kids from different school there? But and again, I have to have the disclaimer, Tim, that, hey, I went to Aquinas, and maybe you're an Aquinas alum, and you're upset by me kind of positioning it that way. I'm just asking questions. That's all I'm doing here. Lance McCullers goes from the Astros to the Brewers.
Him and his 7 ERA. Or whatever it is.
Yeah, it's kind of
Not
like,
good.
yeah, like, all right, what do we? It's funny how, like, I'm watching the game last night, too, and they're going way out of their way. Like, wow, we're Tariq Schoolbull, blah, 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 blah. Well, the Tigers, they've crept back into this. Bull ass. They crept back in. They're 8 games below 500. Crept back into what? Based on what? They're 6.5 behind them. Okay, I guess in theory they could get hot. Even the Royals are like, well, if things kind of go away, blah, 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 blah. They're 13 games behind. The Royals, 38-59. It's over. Become sellers. It almost seemed like they didn't want to rain on anybody's parade last night. Everything was awesome watching that. Wow, the Tigers, maybe they're not sellers. No, they should be sellers. You're being honest with yourselves. And for the Astros, that's a team, honestly, I don't know if they're coming or going because they are 4 games below 500. Probably they should sell, but then again, as I've stated, I don't know who's good in the American League.
Everybody in the AL stinks with Aaron Judge off the Yankees. So
no, like everybody in the this is the AFC from last year. Like, okay, who's really good? And we ended up with the Patriots, and they weren't good in the Super Bowl. Let's talk to our guy, PJ Glasser. PJ Glasser, your host has sent it in. Game Day Garage. A lot of platforms. You hear him on BetMGM tonight. Like, that is kind of cool when you hear him on there, too. PJ Glasser joining us next. My name is Gene Battaglia. This is Sports Bar.
Sports Update.
Coming up top of the hour, the second of two semifinals from Atlanta. Argentina against England, the winner to face Spain in the final on Sunday. Well, we will get the thoughts of the great PJ Glasser, who joins us next year in the Sports Bar. Hockey season, believe it or not, right around the corner. The schedule will come out in full tomorrow. Today, we have a couple dates on the Sabres schedule that was released. Buffalo opening the season in Columbus on Thursday, October the 1st. The home opener Saturday, October the 3rd against Bo Byram and the Chicago Blackhawks. Major leagues, they're off tonight. That's because of the All-Star break. Things will resume tomorrow with just one game. The Mets taking on the Phillies. Rochester Red Wings back home Friday against Jacksonville. Sports is brought to you by GetMyPerks.com. Get 2 rounds of golf for the price of 1 with card to Eagle Vale Golf Course. Gene Battaglin, the sports leader, 95.7 FM, AM 950, WGR Rochester.
The best local sports talk in the Flower City. The Sports Bar with Gene Battaglia on the Sports Leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950 WGR. Rochester.
It's one of those sporting events that if I knew I was going to have this much fun watching it, I probably would have been more invested right from the get-go. One guy who certainly was right from the get-go, PJ Glasser, joining us here in the Sports Bar. Where PJ, we'll talk about this. We will talk about the Open. I want to talk a little college football with you today as well. But PJ, today we get England, we get Argentina. To me, Argentina is that a team that's been playing with fire that still is somehow alive. I comp them to the Kansas City Chiefs, where like, hey, they have the star power, but man, are they really? Should they have gotten to this point? Who do you like in this matchup here today, PJ? PJ, how are you?
Gene, I'm doing good. I'm with you on that comp. I think it's a good one. They are the 2024 Kansas City Chiefs, right? They're trying to go back-to-back. They're starting to get the refs, the whistle to go their way. They got an all-time great on their team. And it's kind of interesting watching from Argentina going from this team that everybody was pulling for to now almost becoming the villain a little bit, because it feels like the way VAR and FIFA might be on their side. This should be a great game, though, today. Argentina has played 3 knockout round games so far. All 3 have gone to extra time. I think we see the same thing again today against England, so that's about plus 190. I have bet that today. You want to get a little fun, Gene? I think either team to win in penalty kicks at plus 475 is a good bet, too. I think this thing goes the full distance. I do like England to squeak by and get the win, but again, it does feel like they're the Chiefs, and I think if Argentina were to play Spain, they would get smoked. I think England's a super talented team, but I just, I am a little worried about the game today. My comp when we got to the quarterfinals was I thought it was going to play out similar to the NBA playoffs, Gene, where I thought France was Oklahoma City, Spain was the Spurs, and England was the Knicks. And so far, that's kind of played out to be true, with Spain having that small upset over France. Now you got England waiting in the wings, and I'm going to ride with that initial prediction. So I'll take England today, but I think we're headed for another extra time game.
Wow. If England ends up in the final, and we won't know until, that's after, of course, the Open is actually over. But I'm just trying to think of what that will be like in that country, PJ. If we get to a Sunday in the British, don't call it British Open, where we haven't had an Englishman win since Nick Faldo in 1992. Like, what would that be like if we had, I don't know, a Tommy Fleetwood, a Justin Rose, somebody like that on the leaderboard? What are the chances of that, do you think, coming up here on Sunday?
Yeah, it'd be pretty nuts, wouldn't it? I'm sure there are a lot of people out there parlaying England with either Fitzpatrick, Fleetwood, Rose, like you were saying, or maybe somebody else down the board. But it would be pretty cool. The Open, Gene, we all love the Masters, and that's obviously the top major. But I really do love the Open Championship. There's something about waking up early, watching the link-style golf courses, the pot bunkers, the weather. All these guys tee off on the first hole because you can play from 6:30 in the morning all the way until 9 at night over there this time of the year in England. So it's going to be a heck of a tournament, and I definitely think some of those English boys, Fitzpatrick, Fleetwood, Rose, all those guys got a got a really good shot to win it this week.
Yeah, is PJ, our betting expert, joining us here. Game Day Garage, BetMGM tonight, other platforms you can catch PJ's work. PJ, as far as the chalky guys, I mean, Scotty Scheffler missed the cut last week, but if he gets to this course and is able to get an extra practice round, any concern here with Scheffler as he's looking to repeat?
Gene, you and I have done a lot of these, and whenever we talk about Scotty Scheffler in an event and you're giving out the odds, it's usually, he's plus 400 this week, he's plus 500 this week. Scotty's like 8-1 in some markets to win this week, and sometimes in golf, man, you're just betting numbers, and if you feel like a guy's price is too high, you just pull the trigger. I can't tell you how many times I've bet on a golfer or watched a golf event where a guy is like consistently in a certain price range, and then one week it just inflates a little bit. It gets maybe higher than it should, and then that guy either wins or he's right there in contention, and that kind of feels like what we could get with Scotty this week. He's the defending champion at the Open. He won it last year, and like you said, he missed the cut last week for the first time in 78 events, so maybe that was the kick in the butt that he needed. But even though he hasn't won since January and he hasn't won a major this year, he's still got 8 top 4 finishes. He's still finished top 5 in a major twice. So he's right there, Gene. He's still lurking. He's close. And I don't know, maybe the fact that he's getting a little disrespected this week, maybe the fact that he missed the cut, I think Scotty's going to play really well. So I did bet him to win at that price at plus 800, but I actually really like him top 10 at minus 110 because, we're so focused on the outright number, but now the fact that it's up at plus 750, plus 800, you can now bet him minus 110 to finish in the top 10. So I really think that's the play of this week with Scotty.
Well, so the open-ended question here, any other plays here from the Open, the last major of the year, certainly drawing a lot more attention with it being a major. Any other advice you can give us here to play this, PJ?
I like Victor Hovland this week, Gene, at 25-1. Another guy who's playing really good golf. He beat Scotty at the Travelers Championship a few weeks ago. When Victor's on, he's one of the best ball strikers in the world, which means he's great off the tee. He's terrific with his iron play, and that's what he's been in these last few events. He's been super accurate, which you need to be. And the knock on Victor throughout his career is that usually the chipping isn't great. He's not the greatest scrambler around the greens, but the beauty of links golf is that you can putt. You can putt it from 80 feet, 75 feet away. You don't have to deal with kind of these traditional rough around the greens like we get on the U.S. courses. So Hovland, he's played in 5 Open championships. He's finished in the top 15 in 3 of them. He's in good form. I think he's a guy I would look at this week. And then the U.S. Open champion, Wyndham Clark's another guy that I like. I talked about Hovland's chipping hasn't been great throughout his career. Well, the 2 majors that Wyndham has won, he's really been impressive scrambling around the greens. He's number 1 on the PGA Tour in putts per hole, so he's really averaging like less than 2 holes a putt. He's been accurate with his iron play, and he's got a bunch of confidence right now, and he's, a guy that has proven that he can win majors. He knows what's that takes, and he's been pretty good out in links golf courses. So Scotty, Victor, and Wyndham, Gene. Those are going to be my 3 this week.
PJ Glasser, Game Day Garage, BetMGM tonight, betting expert here in the sports bar. And PJ will be coming to town. We'll talk a little bit about that as well. PJ, as far as college football, and if you're fine with this, I want to kind of dip our toe in the water here when it comes to both college and pro football. But I think it's timely to talk a little bit about the ACC for a couple of reasons. One, the media days used to be one, but the ACC network needs to fill programming, right? So that's what they're kind of doing, and they're spreading this out over 3 days, maybe to give schools a little bit more time. So today, Florida State, Miami, NC State, Stanford, Virginia. Syracuse goes tomorrow. Bill Belichick goes on Friday, right? And there's some other schools obviously in there. PJ, we were kind of laughing on our show yesterday because I'm out on Monday night, and like everybody, we're watching the game, right? We're watching the Home Run Derby. And on one of the monitors, it's a station I wouldn't kind of be watching. It's some sort of show on the ACC network. And since it's ESPN owning the ACC network, it's their graphics, and they throw up the odds for teams to win the ACC. PJ, they didn't even mention Syracuse. They didn't even mention the Orange, which, okay, I can't fault them, but it's almost like they're saying, no, gentle friend, we don't want you to bet on the Orange. How difficult is it in general with the portal, with all this movement in college football, just to kind of have that baseline of, okay, who is really good and who isn't in college football entering 2026?
It's very tough. I mean, like you said, as we know, college athletics nowadays, so many moving parts. You got coaches, players. I mean, it's just so many things that are constantly changing every single year. It's really a big guessing game, and you go with the teams that maybe retained a bunch of their roster or really did a good job in the transfer portal. Maybe a team that really spent out and invested in their roster. And then at the end of the day, Gene, I just kind of look at the teams that I think have favorable schedules. And after last year's schedule for Syracuse being as absolutely brutal as it was, this year, I got to be honest, it's not too terrible. I mean, they don't play any difficult non-conference games, which I think is good for them. They get New Hampshire to start, and then they get UConn as well in week 5, it looks like. They play, the ACC schedule, but they don't have to play Miami. They get SMU, Clemson, and Notre Dame at home. So last year, it felt like all the toughest games for Cuse was on the road. This year, all their toughest games are at home, which is definitely what you want if you're going to play tough teams. And, I mean, I don't have to tell you, when Syracuse is good, the Carrier-Dome is a really tough place to play. After what a great job Fran Brown did in year 1. Last year was definitely rebuilding. They took some steps back. So I don't think they're going to win the ACC, but I do think there is a chance they can make a bowl just because all of their toughest games are at home. And it wouldn't shock me if maybe they win 1 or 2 of those games that maybe on paper you're not expecting them to win.
Man, can we get back to 500? The Orange on an 8-game losing streak to enter the 2026 season. PJ, in communicating with you about the ACC, all right, it's a huge conference. They all are big. There are 2 teams you've got an eye on. Now, one, you could say, all right, that team, I understand. For good reason, we should like them. There's another team that was 500 in the conference that you also like. Before we get to a team that might, some people would consider kind of a surprise, tell us the team that you think will be back here atop, challenging for the top again in the ACC.
Yeah, I think it's going to be Miami, Gene. I mean, no surprises there, right? They were in the national championship game last year at home against Indiana. They couldn't quite pull through. Their offense, though, is going to be lethal this season. It might be the best offense in the country. Their quarterback, Darian Mensah, comes over from Duke, where he was the QB last year. They have Mark Fletcher, their running back, who's back, and Malachi Toney, who's one of the best receivers in the country. He's going to be back as well. And if there's one thing Mario's proven in his time that he's been at Miami is he can recruit the line of scrimmage, offense, defense. I mean, Miami's always strong up front. So they're going to be a really good offensive team. They're going to be very good in the trenches. Their defense should be solid again. The tough parts for Miami are they are at Clemson and they are at Notre Dame this year. And also Mario's track record, even going back to his days at Oregon, where he always seems to lose a game or two that he necessarily shouldn't. So that's the concern if you're a Miami fan. But on paper, Gene, I mean, there's a big reason why this team is minus money to win the ACC. They are definitely the most talented team. There's no doubt about it. And as long as they don't play down to the level of their competition and, they don't have one of those 4 or 5 turnover games and give a game away, they should win the ACC.
Yeah, I think Miami at the top makes sense. But if there's another team that you think could challenge them or, perhaps even be in the conversation for the playoff, maybe? Give us kind of your surprise team there in the ACC.
It's going to be Louisville, and a big part of it, one of my favorite coaches, Jeff Brom in college football, man, he's so good. I was just talking about Miami and how Mario sometimes his teams play down to the level of their competition and lose games that they shouldn't lose. Jeff Brom's the opposite. If you want a team, if you want a coach that can upset top 5 teams, top 10 teams, Jeff Brom is your guy, man. He he has this ability to get his teams to play up to the level of their competition. And look, Louisville was in the hunt last year to make the ACC, go to the college football playoff, and then they drop a couple games at the end of the year. But they did upset Miami on the road. They got Lincoln Keenholz coming in to play quarterback, who transfers over from Ohio State, obviously with Julian Sayin being there. He decided to transfer and give himself a shot to be a starter. Brom's one of the best offensive minds in the country, one of the best quarterback coaches in the country. He always has good skill position players, and the defense is also solid as well. So the issue with Louisville, Gene, they can beat anybody, but they can also lose to anybody. I just think Brom's one of the best coaches in that conference. And outside of Miami, if I were to look at another team, they would be it.
PJ, like when we have you on now, it's going to be a little bit of this, a little bit of that. All right, so for next week, your call here, bud. Do I got to start reading up on the Big Ten or the SEC? Where do you want to go next here, bud?
Wherever you want, Gene. Let's do Big Ten so that when I see you the week after that in person, we talk a little SEC. How about that?
That is perfect planning. Because if you're familiar with PJ, he comes on with us Wednesdays, but PJ's brother interning for the Rochester Red Wings, and that internship is going to come to an end. He's got to go back to school. You're doing the brotherly thing here, helping your brother come up. You're going to take in our town here for the first time, PJ.
Well, yeah, I tell him that I'm doing the brotherly thing, but really, I just want to see the boys in the sports bar. You know what I'm saying? I just want to come up and see Rochester. That's what I want to do. So no, it'll be good. I'll definitely try and catch a game when I'm up there. We'll help them move out, bring them back to Maryland. But excited to see you guys in a couple of weeks. It's going to be fun.
So I assume you're driving up then, buddy, right? Is that kind of the plan?
So we're actually flying up to Rochester, and then my dad is driving up on Saturday, and he's going to bring the car with him. So we can pack up all the stuff and then bring it back. So flying up one way.
Yeah, a lot of flights from Baltimore up to Rochester go direct, of course. PJ, thanks for the time, bud, and let's do this again next Wednesday.
Absolutely, Gene. Appreciate you having me.
All right, thanks. PJ Glasser, who you can catch on Game Day Garage. You can also certainly bet MGM tonight, other platforms. And yeah, he's coming up on the 31st. Now, we don't have like a public appearance for him, but he's going to be hanging. You want to kind of make note of that. Here in the sports bar, what we do is we don't like to, it's tough to take weeks off on vacation in this business. We do it over the 4th of July because, quite honestly, so does everybody else, seemingly. And it's not football season. But if you've noticed here, too, Fridays in July, that's how we're kind of piecing our vacation time together. Tim and Dan DeLorean are totally fine with us. So we won't be here this Friday. And then the next Friday on the 24th, that'll be the last Friday. And then summer's over. No, it's not, Gene. Oh, yeah, it is. It's football season. Summer's over. Training camp, and we're ready to go. And that'll be a wild Friday because the Bills practice at 8:30 in the morning. And then we'll be doing our show. And PJ will be joining us live in studio. So cannot wait for that. Talking about the Section 5 issue. Yep, we got calls. People wanted to call in. But because we have PJ lined up, we couldn't get to you. So you want your opinion voiced on that? Last call is for you. 585-866-4326. That is our phone number, the Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub Wingman line. My name is Gene Battaglia. This is WGR Rochester.
For live sports and the best sports talk anywhere. The Sports Bar with Gene Battaglia, 95.7 FM and AM 950 WGR, Rochester.
This is really hard to believe. Welcome back to the Sports Bar. Gene Battaglia with you. So, off this week, but back tomorrow is Dan DeLorean. And he right now is at the San Diego airport. I didn't talk to him. How do I know this? Because he just put this out there. At the San Diego airport, he ran into Minnesota Vikings head coach Kevin O'Connell.
That's crazy.
That's nuts. Now, and how would you know? Like if you could say, okay, what does Kevin O'Connell look like? Okay, I can have an idea, but if he was walking in the airport, I might not have the courage to go up to him because I'm not really sure. Well, how would Dan know? Dan's a Viking fan. He knew right away. Now, I don't know if he actually went up to him. He put out the picture.
I hope he asked to call Diana Rossini.
I hope he just kind of went. So Dan DeLorean at the zoo, Dan DeLorean with his head coach. Like, this is like, we'll get we'll live vicariously.
Incredible end of the vacation.
Yeah, that is something. He's going to have that vacation hangover. Like, it's a good vacation. And it can come back and like, oh. Even if you do something like this, that is, I swear, the best job in Rochester, talking sports with you.
Yeah.
It is. Even you got to sell advertising and do all the other stuff. No, it is the best job. Even still, you go on vacation, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, vacation was really great. 585-866-4326. That's the Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub Wingman line. We were talking about that story, how Aquinas football is now going to draw players from the Rochester Academy Charter School. Brian joining us here from East Hilton. Brian, what's up, buddy?
Hey, Gino, how are you, bud?
I'm doing well. Everything's good. Although it's, can't see the sun today. How are you?
No, I'm good. I'm just wondering, like, these private schools in Section 5, they already have the advantage. They can steal players from your high school, offer them scholarships, and they don't have to be from the area, and now they're going to combine with another charter school? Like, how is that even fair? Talk about stacking the deck. It's really ridiculous.
I don't know the rules when it comes to charter schools helping to provide. I think we can. This is why I don't think it's 100% in on one side here, Brian, because you want kids opportunities to play sports, and for the Rochester Academy Charter School, I get it from their standpoint, right? They need to get their numbers. They do. Even they don't play on the same field as Aquinas. You're not paying all this money, but you have an enrollment process. And what a pitch is it to that student to say, hey, you can't get into Aquinas because of money, but come here and we can help you get on that football team. That just, to me, at minimum, say what it is. It's Aquinas/Rochester Academy Charter School. There are plenty of other hyphenated programs throughout Monroe County. You don't have to go very far. That's my point. That at minimum should be it, Brian. Like, I hear your point that, all right, in other parts of the state, this isn't allowed. Aquinas and McQuaid, this has been kind of grandfathered in Section 5. But at minimum,
Why can't they just go to the high school where they're from, or not to the high school, but play for the team? Like if they're from Hilton and they go to the charter school, play for Hilton Football High School. Why do you have to go to Aquinas? It's just ridiculous.
Because they're looking at the type of player, type of individual that's applying to their school, and this would be right. That should be the rule, right? You go to a Rochester Academy Charter School. Hey, can we help you get on one team? You need to have that relationship with the coach, number one. And not every school is going to say that. Like if you're Hilton or like, no, if you're not going, if we're not getting the tax dollars for you enrolling, then I'm sorry. Then it's not, you can't participate. I'm totally fine with that being that way too. So the charter school has every right to try to figure out a place to have their kids play. But I just kind of question, all right, does this become like a feeder program for Aquinas? Brian, appreciate the call. Appreciate you. 585-866-4326. And these are just the questions I'm sure that administrators in Section 5 are asking right now, too. Like, okay. And maybe Aquinas will be forced to kind of identify themselves as, all right, we're Aquinas Rochester Academy Charter School.
I don't have any issue with that. I think if that's how things are going to be,
Then
that's
do
part
it.
of the school. It's
Then-
like ER
right.
Gananda does it. Like there's countless examples. It's different because it's not a private school, but there's a lot of schools locally that are connected for athletics.
You know, it's funny because that's a great example because, all right, these kids from Gananda, they're not a big enough program. You know what they do? Number one, they combine the colors, the brown and then the light blue of Gananda. They play one game each year out in Gananda, and it's a big deal for those kids. It is a really, really big deal. And you know what? Their ER, by the time football, the brotherhood and everything, everybody is fine with that. The two school districts are not neighboring. They're not close, but they're similar in size, and they have kind of the same mission. Can we compete? Can we get kids opportunity? I think that's a great example there. But I don't think there's any football field at the old Mother of Sorrows on Ladder Road, the academy school.
If you build it, they will come, right?
right, like that. Yes. By the way, like I hadn't been to Aquinas. I mean, shame on me in like 30 years. And then I went back I was like, whoa, okay, things have kind of changed here just a little bit. Tomorrow on the show, we will have some thoughts on the Sabres schedule. That's another story here we touched on today is it's not at the level of the NFL schedule where we're salivating for football, but we can all acknowledge that people are looking forward to the next Sabres season, are you not? It's an earlier start, the earliest start we've ever had for Sabres hockey, and that will be coming up October the 1st at Columbus, the home opener, October the 3rd against Chicago. Bo Byram homecoming game. Okay, I suppose we got to do the video for Bo Byram, right, when he comes in. Thank you, Bo.
Yeah,
Thank
he earned
you,
it.
Bo. You got us a great return in a trade, Bo. Thank you very much. Do you say thank you to the Blackhawk GM on the scoreboard? I think you do that as well.
Yes.
If you miss any of today's show, 1 to 3 Eastern, we're on locally. Download the Odyssey app. You can listen back to it at your convenience anytime. We're on YouTube, Twitch, Odyssey app, 95.7 FM, and AM 950. Show up at the Bulldog. Coming your way next. My name is Gene Battaglia. This is Rochester Sports Leader, 95.7 FM, AM 950, the sports leader, WGR Rochester. Have a good night, everyone.
So much action.